20 Republican Congress members are threatening to resign from the House of Representatives, while Trump and MAGA Mike are in denial. We'll discuss. Donald Trump looking even more sickly, physically and mentally declining before our eyes, and he is lashing out at reporters for asking him very basic questions. We'll discuss. The Department of Justice continues to make a mockery of and humiliate itself. We'll talk about the latest there. The war between Thailand and Cambodia that Donald Trump claimed he resolved, still raging, accelerating, in fact. The war between Congo and Rwanda, or a Rwanda-adjacent group called M23 that Donald Trump claimed he resolved, is getting worse. The war in Ukraine from Russia's invasion getting worse. We've seen drones likely of Russian origin over France's nuclear subs. We've seen drones likely of Russian origin nearly assassinating President Zelensky when he arrived in Ireland. Fortunately, Zelensky got there earlier than expected, but had he arrived at the time he was expected to arrive, those drones were right in the flight path and potentially could have assassinated him. We have Japan calling out China because the Chinese military has been locking on to the Japan fighter jets as if they're going to shoot it down over Japan airspace, which China now claims is its airspace. And meanwhile, the United States released its national security strategy. This is the big document that defines what Trump's foreign policy is going to be. And he says his big policy will be to undermine the existence of the European Union, stop the perception of NATO as a permanent organization, or even the perception that NATO should be permanent and expanding, and prop up right-wing groups aligned with Vladimir Putin that will harm the European Union. We'll talk about that. Also, former President Biden spoke in Washington, D.C. We'll go through that. You have Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett announced her Senate run in Texas. And I really like the words that she said when she ran to all of the deniers and haters out there. I think she actually has a great point. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on 60 Minutes talking about Trump's betrayal of America First and MAGA, and how Donald Trump is covering up a child sex trafficking ring, and how she was shocked that what would break her apart from Donald Trump is his cover-up of a child sex trafficking ring. We'll talk about that and more in this episode of the MeidasTouch Podcast. In other words, we have a jam-packed show, and I didn't even talk about in the intro Donald Trump awarding himself fake peace prizes from the FIFA football or soccer organization so that he feels good about himself. Just a made-up prize that he awarded himself from an organization that I have no clue why they're awarding peace prizes.
What a weird time to be alive, brothers. It's great to see you guys. Yeah, I was going to joke, we got a light show today, not much to talk about. We got so much to talk about today. I'm excited to get into it. I seem to remember a lot of reporters, a lot of folks out there going, but Meidas guys, how could you possibly be saying that all of these wars, that Trump said that he stopped all of these wars and stopped all of these conflicts? I don't understand. How could you report that that's BS? Donald Trump said that he made this happen. And we said, come on, why are you buying this BS? And not even slowly, but surely, just surely, we have seen the results of Donald Trump's disastrous meddling in world affairs. He just tries to claim victory over peace agreements that don't exist, all because he wanted that Nobel Peace Prize, which I guess was eventually replaced by this fake FIFA Peace Prize that they created just for him. The whole thing is utterly bizarre, but we see the world on fire right now. We see the world on fire in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe. We see the world on fire in Asia, just everywhere you look. It's not a good situation right now, and a lot of that is because of Donald Trump's complete and total failure to lead, the complete and total failure for the United States under Donald Trump's leadership, and I use that term very loosely, to assert itself as a force for pro-democracy around the world, to be actually the leader of the free world like the United States used to at least try to be. Those days are long gone. We're going to get into all of it. I know we got a lot to speak about, so I'm going to toss it over to Jordy. Jordy, what's the latest?
What's up, brothers? What's up, Meidas? Mighty excited to be here tonight. Let's just get into the show. Benji, I mean, incredible intro. Where do you want to start off tonight?
Well, look, let's just start with this one thing. And this is how I think the media is engaged in such malpractice over their reporting. Like, I don't know how you can report on Trump brokering a peace deal between Congo and Rwanda, and he has the leaders there while the war is actually still going on. Like, if you just look at what was happening in Congo, like on that day, there were attacks and there were people dying and there was no different situation in the war. So like, why wouldn't you report on that? And so Brett and Jordy and Meidas Mighty, like, I'm appreciative that people are like, you guys called it. But like, yeah, because I was looking at what was actually happening in Congo. Like, I wasn't just accepting what the regime propaganda was. I was saying, is this true? Did they resolve this? Because I seem to believe there's still a war raging. And yes, there was still a war raging. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's just talk about what went down earlier today. And I think this kind of frames a lot of the issues we're going to be discussing. So Trump held this press conference at the White House, where I guess the purported purpose of it was to announce that he was going to be bailing out farmers to the tune of $12 billion because his trade war against the world and his tariffs are bankrupting the farmers. So now he has to go and bail them out. They're calling it like a bridge, but it's a bailout because he's bankrupted them. He had to do this during his first administration as well. But during this presser, Donald Trump was asked a number of other questions by the press. And increasingly, we see how agitated Donald Trump is. And he lashes out and he like almost can't control himself. Like, we know he's a nasty, nasty human being. We know he's despicable. We know he's vile. We know he's a felon. We know he's a sexual abuser. We know he says horrible things. But the way in which he's lashing out at reporters, it almost seems like it's like he even can't control himself in that situation, doing it very publicly. Like when he called the reporter a piggy, be quiet, you piggy. The way he even said that looked like disinhibition. Like it looked like what you would expect to see in very seriously diagnosed dementia patients or Alzheimer's patients. Stop, piggy. Very strange behavior. And then we saw him going to reporters. You shut up. You shut up. You're stupid. You're stupider than me. And you're watching this and you're like, what the hell? This is the President of the United States? Like, what the hell is going on here? Anyway, that brings us to today, where a member of the press asked him, a very important question. So when are you releasing the video footage of the second strike on the fishing boat off the coast of Venezuela from September 2nd, when there were 2 survivors? There were 11 people on the boat, 2 survived, and there's video footage of the whole thing. Senators and Congress members have been able to see it. I've heard people who've seen it say they wanted to vomit. That first off, the boat was going east. It wasn't even going in the direction of the United States. It was never even going to the U.S. We know it didn't have fentanyl for 100% certain. It had potentially cocaine on it. The individuals who survived were in distress, and they were waving their shirts in the air to try to ask for help and to surrender. And that's when they were killed right there. War crime that took place. So Trump previously said that he would release the video. Okay. The same way he previously said he would release the Epstein files. The same, we're the most transparent in history. But then Pete Hegseth over the weekend changed his tune and said, actually, we need to be very careful over classified information and sources and methods. And so we're not going to be able to really release it. So we're doing a study. Hegseth's the guy who talked about war plans on his own personal cell phone on a signal chat outside of a skiff. Okay. And this is the regime that's been releasing these videos. We've seen most of the video. They're just going to hide the part that's the war crime. Everything else they're saying is not classified, and they'll release it. And Hegseth can give war plans on his own personal phone. But when it comes to seeing the war crimes, they're going to hide that. But Trump previously said, 5 days ago, that he was going to release it. So let me show you what went down. And for those on audio, what the video viewers are watching is a split screen from December 8th, when Donald Trump said that, he's going to just do whatever Hegseth wants, which means not release it. And then December 3rd, 2025, from the Oval Office, where Trump said, yeah, I'll release it. I'll make it available, whatever needs to be done. So that's what we're going to show you. And this is what Trump did. You'll see him lash out at the reporter today. Here, play this clip.
Mr. President, you said you would have no problem with releasing the full video of that strike on September 2nd off the coast of Venezuela. Secretary Hegseth now says...
That's you said that. I didn't say that. This is ABC fake news.
Mr. President, you released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what happened?
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release. No problem.
You said that you would have no problem releasing the full video. Are you admitting to releasing the full video?
Didn't I just tell you that?
You said that it was
You're
up
the
to
most
Secretary Hicks.
obnoxious reporter in the whole place. Let me just tell you, you are an obnoxious, a terrible reporter. And it's always the same thing with you. I told you, whatever Pete Hegseth wants to do is okay with me.
Toss it over to Brett and Jordy. I'm going to show other clips, but I feel like I need to pause on that one, Brett and Jordy.
Yeah, I mean, we see him becoming increasingly agitated, snapping at reporters in a way that we really have never seen. I mean, we've seen Donald Trump snap at reporters, obviously, call them fake news, yell at them. Like, that's certainly old news. He's been doing that going back as long as we've seen Donald Trump in the political arena. But the aggressiveness in which he's doing it right now is certainly ramped up in a different way. He's particularly targeting the female reporters and just getting extra nasty. And it seems like he's also becoming frustrated in many ways with his own memory loss or his inability to be able to just understand things that happened just days ago as happened there. And he's also getting lost in his own lies. You know, as we've said before, it's just lie after lie after lie with Donald Trump. And it goes back to, you know, what we've been saying about so many things with this Trump administration, which is where if they had this footage of the boat strike and it exonerated Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and it showed that everything was done by the book and there were no war crimes committed, they would be the first to release this footage. They'd be happily release the footage. I mean, they've released all the other footage of the killings. They've released these execution style videos on their social media, just flippantly posting these videos of them killing people, which I think is incredibly disturbing for the United States to be doing on like a weekly basis at this point, just posting videos of the government executing people. I think that's totally screwed up on its own. But if they have this, they do have this video, but if this video in fact exonerated them through this war crime scandal, they would release it. Just like if the Epstein files unredacted without sifting through them and trying to redact Donald Trump's name and doing all the things that they're trying to do, if those Epstein files also exonerated Donald Trump, they'd be the first to release them. There's a reason why they are withholding this information from the public, and it's because they don't want the public to see it. They don't want the public to see what this administration is actually involved in.
1000%. And look, I earnestly mean this when I say it. Like, I don't even view what it is that we do here at the network as inherently political, right? I think so much of it is just common sense, right? Like, just for instance, some of the things that we fight for here at the network, right? Fair wages, right? People deserve to be paid a living damn wage. Women, they deserve the autonomy. Whatever happens over their own body, they should control that. The LGBTQ community, they should not be treated as the other. People should not be being taken off the streets and thrown into alligator Alcatraz, right? This is common sense stuff to me. This isn't political lefty leaning things. And it's just so crazy to me that now when we look at this, what Donald Trump is doing here, that it's political when we say, he's losing his damn mind in front of the American people, in front of the world, and it's an embarrassment. To me, that's not a political statement. It's a statement of fact and truth when you could actually just watch that video. There's no other conclusion that you can draw other than that. It is honestly just deeply disturbing and, quite frankly, embarrassing to the nation that this person who is the quote-unquote leader, again, Brett, to your point, using that term leader very loosely here, berate reporters like that. And time again, it is the female reporters that he goes after and bullies and picks on. And it's just so friggin' annoying to me that this person right here is that leader of the country who people look to, or that position that people should look to for respect and be like, hey, man, you're just not cutting it. This is not okay.
Look, let's talk about the undisputed facts. The boat was heading in the opposite direction of the United States. It was going east from the Venezuelan area to Suriname. It was not going to the United States. It had no fentanyl in it. Zero. It's not a fentanyl. If anything, it had cocaine in it. You had two people who were on top of the boat who were in distress, who did not have walkie-talkies. We know that. They weren't signaling or calling anybody. They were sitting on there. They were stranded. and then they were waving their shirts as an act of surrender. These are undisputed facts. And then the United States killed them. I believe the entire operation, every aspect of it, is a crime. Since there's not a war, do you call it a war crime or just a crime against humanity? But let's just acknowledge the undisputed facts. So if you ultimately think that the United States government should be in the business of murdering those people, then you're a murderer, then you're a killer. That's just inherently who you are. And that shouldn't be, oh, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. You have bloodlust and you like to see people die and you're a murderer, because these people were not heading to the United States with fentanyl and these individuals were in distress. I'll just remind you of this as well. So, and I give credit to the K-File, CNN, for unearthing, this footage. Maybe a little bit later in the show, I'll pull some of this footage up. But Pete Hegseth said back in 2015, 2016, talking about that the military should not follow unlawful orders and that the military should be very circumspect. He even said then with the types of orders that Donald Trump may give them when he was a Fox host. That's what he was saying, because he said we don't want to end up in a situation where you see like the waterboarding and the torture of potential of terrorists, like was going on during the George Bush administration with the black sites and during some period of the Obama administration, that we don't want to see that. The waterboarding was simulating the feeling of drowning as a interrogation tool that was a faulty and torture one that we know wasn't, but it was simulating the experience of drowning as part of like a torture interrogation. We all were outraged. And Hegseth, based on what he was saying on Fox, was outraged, right? So we've gone from that simulating torture. We go, whoa, we're better as a country than that. You can't do that. To just outright Nazi stuff, right? I mean, just to outright, crimes against humanity. Just kill them. Let's do it. Red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue. I think we have the clip. So let's play that clip from 2016.
Go ahead and kill the families. Go ahead and torture. Go ahead and go further than waterboarding. What happens when people follow those orders or don't follow them? It's not clear that Donald Trump will have their back. Donald Trump is oftentimes about Donald Trump. And so if you're not changing the law and you're just saying it, you create even more ambiguity.
Well, even if he had their back, they'd be in
spot.
trouble. I mean, you tell me. I had a dad stop me in an airport this morning.
And just to be clear, number one, Hegseth sounds like Mickey Mouse there. Number two, to be further clear, he was talking about waterboarding actual Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Okay, like we know. And he was going, what if you were asked to carry that out? Now he's ordering the murder of people off the coast of Venezuela in fishing boats that even if it was heading northwesterly direction up the United States, the boat would still need to be refueled 7 to 8 times, okay? Because they're tiny boats and they were heading east, and he's just supporting outright murder. And I just think it's important, Jordy, to your point, we take a step back and we go, this shouldn't be a Republican or Democrat. It's barbarism. It is what the Nazis did. It is what terroristic regimes did. It's how the Taliban behaves. And the question is are we as the United States that, or are we something different?
I don't know. Sounds like Hegseth there was committing sedition against the United States. So let's start the military war tribunals against Pete Hegseth, because that's the standard that they set. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's everybody has always known. It's been a fundamental part of the United States kind of constitution, the way that we do things, that you don't follow unlawful orders from a commander in chief. That's like an essential part of this country. And this whole fake outrage over this is the same fake outrage that they use when they're cornered in any situation to justify going in an increasingly fascistic, autocratic direction. They want to try to silence dissent, and the ultimate way to silence dissent is by calling people seditious for simply stating what is in the United States Constitution. And that's what they want to do with reporters. That's what they want to do with everything. They want to chill your ability to speak out. So as long as we have our microphones here at the MeidasTouch Network, as long as you have your social media, whatever platforms you have, that's why it's so important for all of us to continue to speak out and not be chilled by their attempts to suppress our speech.
So much we're going to discuss on this episode. I want to take our first quick break of the show. When we come back, I want to talk about MAGA Mike Johnson and Donald Trump panicking about potentially losing the Republican majority in the House of Representatives before the midterms. 20 Republican members who are threatening to resign any day now. We'll talk about one of the things that may provoke that as well, the National Defense Authorization Act. What's in it, what's not in it, and is MAGA Mike going to be able to push this NDAA through? We'll talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene going on 60 Minutes and calling out Donald Trump for covering up a child sex trafficking ring. We'll talk about what's going on in foreign policy that no one else is covering that needs to be covered here, and we'll talk about that and more. A reminder, make sure you hit subscribe. We're on our way to 6 million subscribers on this YouTube channel. As you know, over the past week, the Trump regime and state regime media, which calls itself Fox, is attacking us. They want to shut us down. You've seen the segments. We've been talking about it on our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. So one of the best ways you can help us is make sure you're subscribed. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed. Let's take our first quick break. We've got a lot to show you when we come back.
You know the saying, look good, feel good? The problem is that most dress clothes only nail the look part. They're stiff, they're hot, they're high maintenance. That's why I've been such a big fan of Mizzen and Main. I've been wearing their stuff for years now, and I just grabbed another one of their performance dress shirts. It's honestly become my go-to because it feels more like wearing an athletic shirt than something you would normally have to iron. Mizzen and Main makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it is effortless to look sharp and feel great. And they actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt more than 10 years ago. Since then, they perfected it with modern materials that are stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, and totally machine washable. No ironing or dry cleaning. The second you put one on, you feel the difference. It's professional, it's comfortable, and it works, whether you're in the studio, traveling, or just trying to survive a long day. It's timeless style you can invest in once and wear for years, which is why so many people swear by Mizzen and Main. Right now, Mizzen and Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com. Promo code MeidasTouch. That's Mizzen, spelled M-I-Z-Z-E-N, and Main, M-A-I-N.com. Promo code MeidasTouch, MEIDAS20 for 20% off. mizzenandmain.com, promo code MeidasTouch. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states.
Christmas parties, holiday dinners, late night gift wrapping with a glass of eggnog. It's the season for celebration. Just don't forget the ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Look, I won't lie, I was a little bit on the fence about giving pre-alcohol a try initially, but then while hanging out with some friends over at a wedding, I gave it a shot, and believe me, it's the real deal. Make the most of every toast this holiday season. Just don't forget to bring pre-alcohol along for the ride. Go to zbiotics.com/Meidas to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Meidas at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Meidas and use the code Meidas at checkout for 15% off. Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you a lot of great deals this time of holiday season. Benji, where to next?
Well, you first heard about the potential mass GOP resignations from the House here on the MeidasTouch Network. Then you heard from it on Punchbowl. They've got great sourcing in the House of Representatives, and they were hearing from a lot of members about potential resignations. And now an organization called PUC is reporting that it could be up to 20 or maybe even more MAGA Republican Congress members who are looking to resign. They are deeply frustrated that their lives are essentially meaningless and that their work means absolutely nothing because they just have to do whatever Donald Trump tells them to do, and they can't actually do anything to get credit or to look good in front of their constituents, and they have to keep defending whatever Donald Trump says on any given day. And they view MAGA Mike Johnson as the worst possible speaker imaginable, who's basically given away all of the authority of the House of Representatives. You've heard us talk about it here on the MeidasTouch Network. It's like, what's the point of holding the position of Speaker of the House, an august position, if ultimately you've given up all of the authorities of congressional power under Article 1 by just being a stooge for Donald Trump, exactly the way our founders and framers did not want things to happen. I've said that before about these billionaires, right? They used to call it like, you've got this money, it's FU money. I'm like, why would you want FU money or whatever when you're still now a stooge and a pawn of Donald Trump, and you have to go and beg this con artist and this criminal and this sexual abuser for your existence to continue? Like, who would even want to live like that? So anyway, this reporting's out there. It's clearly in Donald Trump and MAGA Mike Johnson's head. And a reporter from New York's Daily News asked Donald Trump about this report that 20 House Republicans said that they will retire or not run again. And then Donald Trump attacks the reporter and says, "You're not prepared. How many Democrats are going to resign?" Here, play this clip.
Midterms, and I just have a quick question. There's at least 20 House Republicans who have either said they're going to retire or not run again. Do you have any
Democrats
concerns
also.
about the
And Democrats
Right.
also.
Do you have
Well,
any?
why don't you mention them? How many Democrats are going to retire? How many Democrats?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
But
Do you
why don't
have
you tell me
any
the number of
concerns?
Democrats too? You
Well,
tell me
are
about.
you concerned about the narrow margins? And
No, I'm not concerned. I think we're going to do well.
Is among them, and
We will have the
Nancy
greatest
Pelosi,
economy.
Bruce Blakeman, who you know as well, is considering running for
We're going to
governor.
have the greatest economy in history. How many Democrats are retiring? How come you only know the Republicans but not the
Because I
Democrats?
came prepared to ask you a question about.
No, you're unprepared because you should know the Democrats. You're totally unprepared. Go ahead.
Well, can I ask a quick follow-up
Who you with?
about?
Who you with?
I'm with New York Newsday, and I also have a quick follow-up.
And that's how Donald Trump treats reporters there, and he has no good answer for that at all. Next, a reporter asked Donald Trump about 22 million Americans who are expected to see their health insurance premiums get significantly higher right on January 1st, right? The last day for the current Affordable Care Act plans that people purchase ends December 31st. This is not some Democratic talking point that your Affordable Care Act subsidies are going to expire. It is a real thing, and people who need to purchase their insurance on the Affordable Care Act exchanges are seeing what the prices are. So a lot of people are waiting it out. Is Congress going to pass legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies? The short answer is I highly doubt they're going to. I don't even think MAGA Mike's going to bring it up for a vote. Here's what Donald Trump says when he's asked about it, though. Play this clip.
Do you support the Paramount deal, sir?
On healthcare, Mr. President, 22 million Americans are expected to see their healthcare insurance premiums start to rise by the beginning of next year.
You're talking about because Obamacare is so bad?
Yes, well, sure, because the Obamacare subsidies are expiring. Are you going to do
That's because
any?
Obamacare is so bad.
What is the Republican plan? Are you going to let that happen on your watch?
What I'm going to do is, if the Democrats go along with it, which they don't want to because they want to make the insurance companies very rich, okay? I want the money to be paid to the people to go out and buy their own health care instead of paying to the insurance companies, their stock has gone up 1,700% in a short period of time.
He just makes up numbers, but
it's really the most evil framing imaginable to try to pretend to be this populist and say, oh, they just want to make the insurance companies richer. That's what it's all about. We all know that Donald Trump is in the pocket of the insurance companies, that he is in the pocket of big pharma. We all know that that is true. And Donald Trump is saying that to try to divert attention from what he's doing, which is ripping away the one lifeline that people have so that they could get the health care that they need so that they don't go bankrupt. To say, nah, I'm not going to give them these subsidies, which is how our system works right now. We have shared risk pools. It's how the whole insurance system that we have in this country works. It relies on people signing up for insurance, right? It relies on people all doing this. And the Affordable Care Act put in these protections for people so that people with pre-existing conditions would not be screwed over and they wouldn't just die because they needed to get medical care or go bankrupt because they needed to get medical care. The Affordable Care Act helped with that tremendously. I wish we had some sort of single payer system or some sort of universal system, but this is the system we have. But Donald Trump right here and these Republicans are trying to gut the current system that we have without providing an alternative for people and for families who actually need help. Donald Trump's solution here is, I'm just going to, I think he maybe even dropped the whole, I'm going to give you money, but his whole thing now is just, you pay for it yourself. And the fact is, the issue is the reason why we needed Obamacare in the first place is that people aren't able to just pay for it themselves. People aren't able to get the care that they need by themselves. So a lot of these insurance companies were also denying so many people the care that they needed when they tried to get it without the government intervention of Obamacare. So spare me the BS arguments. And this would be one of the most grotesque things that Donald Trump and the Republicans have ever done. And that is a very high bar for them if they let these subsidies expire and let American families suffer like this. Premiums are going to double for some folks, triple for some folks. Some people are going to be spending $10,000 more a year, $20,000 more a year. It's unsustainable. And it's not about bailing out the insurance companies. It's about not destroying the healthcare system that people rely upon just so you could get some sort of win in your own eyes. It's so screwed up to me.
1000%. And it just needs to be said. He looks awful. I'm not saying it to be funny. I'm not saying it for clicks. He looks terrible. Like, even beyond the ridiculous yellow makeup, orange makeup that we've known him to wear.
He's looking like a Simpson today.
Our video viewers right now, our live stream viewers are seeing this. If you're an audio listener, please come to the stream tomorrow on the YouTube channel and look at the clips for yourself. I'm not just making this up. And again, I think it's actually important that we start having these conversations a bit more vocally here about him snapping at the reporters, about him forgetting very basic things that he had previously said, about him looking the way he's looking in these instances because he's getting MRIs all the time and not disclosing why. We know he already has CVI. We know he's been going through all of that. And his handlers, they don't release any information on him other than these like fake medical reports that get put out that are like super glorified about how he's in the best health ever. They just stop gaslighting the American. Yeah, he Brett's for the audio viewers. Brett has brought up a Simpsons character. I actually don't know that character's name, and I feel like
it looks just like it's the same color. He's Simpsons yellow.
It's the same exact hue that we're describing. It's really unbelievable. It's just, for me too. It's just, I just want transparency out of that office. And I know we're never going to fully get transparency, especially from a Trump regime. But at the most, like, just stop gaslighting the American people, because you're going to put him up there. He's going to be speaking like that. He looks awful.
Yeah. And speaking of gaslighting the American people, it goes beyond like, will this administration be transparent with you? They do the opposite. It's when they do speak about things, they lie. And to your point, Jordy, they gaslight the American people. They lie. They say whatever the opposite of reality is, that is the truth. And they try to broadcast that. So like the thing that they've been saying now over the past few weeks, past few months, we could say, is as Americans are suffering, as they're paying so much more for everyday items and services, the Trump administration goes up there to the cameras every single day and they go, everything is just great. Everything is so great. We live in the golden age. This is the best economy. Everyone is thriving. Everybody is amazing. Can't you feel it, folks? Thank you, Donald Trump. You really did it. And Kevin Hassett, who works for Trump in the economic issues, he is one of those guys who goes on TV. You probably know him. He's the guy who's always has this big phony smile on his face when he goes out there and lies to people. He's the guy who's been literally wrong about every economic crisis going back decades and decades and decades. So, of course, he is Donald Trump's person who he put in charge to handle matters of the economy. So Kevin Hassett today was speaking about Donald Trump's economic message. Listen to what he had to say.
There's a huge amount of positive news that the president is going to be breaking this week about the economy. You know, we've got a person who actually approached the studio with me, walked with me, who's tracking the openings, the groundbreakings for the new factories that are, you know, in the trillions of dollars of announcements that the president's been making. And we're up to almost 30 of those that actually the groundbreakings have happened. And so there's a lot of positive news that's positive for people's jobs, for people's incomes, and for inflation. And President Trump is just going to go out there and remind people of that.
Everything's great.
Kevin has
amazing.
On his face is the single most annoying sort of gesture I think anyone in the regime does, because it's that face every single. I can't even I'm for the audio listener. I'm trying to do the smirk that he does. And
you know who does the smirk? The only person who does his smirk as good as his smirk, which is as bad, is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Has his own little smirk that he does when he does these interviews. Like, well, actually, we beat inflation. And I watch this guy do it, and I'm like, dude, what the hell is even going on here? And they're both their shit-eating grins are equally more deplorable than the next. But you know, people talk about how the Simpsons have been prescient in predicting a lot of the stuff that Trump's done. But like, look at 1984. Just this quote. I mean, I know everybody knows this 1984 quote, but just think about it. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Right? That's literally the Trump mantra. War is peace. I want a peace prize while the wars are going on. Freedom is slavery. While he's subjugating people, he runs on a platform of this is your freedom, taking away your rights. And you've got people saying, freedom, while he takes it. Don't tread on me. These are the ultimate treaders. I can't think of people treading on you more than this federal government. I mean, they're traitor treaders. Ignorance is strength. It's the dumbest stuff, but they're saying to not know, to be ignorant, that's actually having a high IQ and being really smart. I mean, just war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And just think about the hiding that we've talked about already on this episode. Hiding the Epstein files, hiding the video of the airstrikes because there are war crimes and they don't want to show it, although I believe the whole operation is a war crime or crime against humanity. Hiding the medical records. It wasn't like they said, oh, Donald Trump's got to get an MRI at Walter Reed, right? What happened was they pretended he was getting a physical, and we at the MeidasTouch Network was like, yeah, he did that in April. You're doing 2 physicals? That doesn't sound normal. And then they reported the results, and they tried to sneak in, you know, normal advanced imaging. Then at the MeidasTouch Network, we said, advanced imaging? You mean MRI? So he got an MRI, and he seems to be getting consistent MRIs. Is that what happened? Yeah. I got an MRI. Well, Donald, what body part did you get it of? I don't know. You don't know what part of your body you got an MRI on? I'll release it. Weeks pass. Are you going to release it? I say, yeah. We'll release it. So what do they release? Some bizarro doctor note talking about preventative abdominal MRIs, which are not a thing. There's no such thing as a preventative abdominal MRI. At the MeidasTouch Network, we have a subsidiary called Meidas Health, run by Dr. Vin Gupta. He reached out to all the best radiologists, MRI technicians, people in the medical field who would be experts in this area. Have you ever heard of a preventative abdominal MRI? It doesn't exist. There's nothing in the literature that even talks about such a thing. Now, in a rare case, could someone get a preventative MRI in general? I don't know, maybe, but that's certainly not recommended or suggested. But if you were to do a preventative MRI, you wouldn't just say the abdominal area, because that's not even the main area where you'd want an MRI on. If you were to do an MRI in a preventative way, you'd want to do the brain, you'd want to do the spine, and you'd want to then target a body part that you also thought may have an issue. But just to do the abdomen, that's like the weirdest thing, and it doesn't exist. So if you did a preventative MRI and then the results ignore the brain, while Donald Trump continues to talk about taking cognitive tests every few months, what it looks like to me is the same cover-up the Trump family tried to pull with Fred Trump, who died of conditions relating to Alzheimer's. It was pneumonia, but it was the Alzheimer's that basically led to his rapid deterioration. And we saw these cognitive exams that Fred would have to take all of the time because it's in the court file from the estate litigation where all the Trumps sued each other over Fred's money that Donald Trump basically seized. And then he sued everybody for it. But we know from Fred's medical records that he had rapidly deteriorating conditions caused by his Alzheimer's and dementia, beginning right around the same age that Donald does. And we know that that runs in families. 30% higher risk of having it, potentially more for the Trump family, because they're known for having this in their family. Fred Trump III, Trump's nephew, has talked about this. I did a video because a Democratic lawmaker, Comliger, she talked about, is he on Leqembi, Leqembi, this treatment where it requires kind of constant IVs on your hand and the back of your hand where Trump's getting them. It makes you tired. You have to get these MRIs because of the way the treatment is. I don't know one way or another, but when you keep engaging in these cover-ups, I think people can look at you and say something is seriously wrong with you. Something is seriously wrong in the Epstein files. Something is seriously wrong in the video, because it's cover up after cover up after cover up. And we're not going to shy away from covering it on the MeidasTouch Network. There's one other point, though, I just wanted to make before closing the loop on the MAGA Republicans who are threatening to resign. And I mentioned this at the outset because it doesn't get enough attention anywhere else. So I think it's kind of our role here at the MeidasTouch Network to talk about it. The NDAA has just been released, the National Defense Authorization Act. It's over 3,000 pages in length. And the NDAA is basically the funding mechanism for the military. It's over $900 billion that's going to go to the military. Just pause there for a second and think about it. $900 billion going to the military, to a military industrial complex, to companies you probably never heard of, to people and places and things like Palantir and AI and people seizing your data and making this kind of militarized state. This is in addition, by the way, to the $200 billion going to ICE and Border Patrol. If you wanted to give health care to all or free education to all like I want, all you'd have to do is tax the rich fairly, or perhaps slightly more than they're getting taxed out now, and just take that military budget of $900 billion, right, where America's engaged in war crimes. Why don't you move it to $500 billion? You'll still lead the world by far, and we can take that $500 billion and give it to people so that they can actually live, damn it, in the United States. What a novel concept. People are like, how would we go and do it? How do we give Medicare for all? How do we do single payer? How do we get better education? Take that military budget, slash it in half, bring it over to people's health care. How about we do that? And how about we tax the rich a little more? That would be my plan. I think it would be simple. In any event, you look through the National Defense Authorization Act. Let's just talk about what they removed from it. They removed any Department of Defense collective bargaining protection. So great work, unions for Trump. You've sold out your union brothers and sisters again. No IVF coverage for military members. That was removed. So Donald Trump's like, I'm going to give everybody free IVF coverage. Well, you're specifically also depriving service members of IVF coverage. So if you're going to attack the ability of service members to start a family, you think he's going to give you free IVF coverage? And the reason this was removed is that the MAGA Republicans believe that IVF is a form of murder, and that when you do the IVF proceeding, you're killing babies. And that's what they believe. So that's why they've removed IVF. And then there was going to be a provision called Road to Housing, which actually doesn't have much to do with the Department of Defense. But lots of people wanted this in there. And this is what happens with these big kind of bills sometimes. You just stick things in places like this. But this would actually have dealt, and was supposed to be in there, affordability on housing, increasing the supply of housing, using some of this money that would otherwise go to killing people to build houses. That's like, let's get rid of that. Oh my God. The Road to Housing was actually a bipartisan bill that was passed in the Senate to increase the supply of housing, not the gimmicks and the scams of 50-year mortgages. Build more houses with government money. They're like, nah, let's get rid of that right there. And then the other thing that they removed as well is people wanted there to be a ban on the Federal Reserve issuing a central bank digital currency. And MAGA Mike promised a lot of MAGA Republicans this would be in the NDAA, And guess what? MAGA Mike lied. Because MAGA Mike always freaking lies. One of the interesting things, though, about what was actually in this National Defense Authorization Act, there's a lot there constraining Donald Trump's ability to attack Ukraine and Europe because it's official Trump regime policy, and we'll talk about it when we get back, to attack the European Union, to attack, to harm Ukraine, to help Putin. So one of the interesting things, and I think this is a good thing, at least that's in there, is that any plan of like withdrawing troops from Europe or doing certain things that would harm the national security of Ukraine, it like by law prevents Trump from doing it. It makes it like literally like an unlawful act. And it's just interesting to see Congress put those provisions in there because of Trump's behavior. And I think that that's not getting enough attention right there. Let's just show this one clip though, because people are like, Ben, what the hell is this press conference you're even showing me? It was about Donald Trump bailing out farmers. And here Donald Trump talks about we're going to be giving and providing farmers $12 billion. And that's a lot of money, he wants them to know, because he says he loves the farmers so much so that he's destroyed their livelihood. He gave $40 billion to Argentina, who then sold their soybeans to China. And then, by the way, during this press conference too, Xi Jinping was like to Donald Trump, so tell me about your soybeans. And Trump's like, they're more nutritious than Argentina. And Trump says that Xi Jinping told him, is that are you saying that like as a Trump thing, or is that real? Like, is it actually better, or is it a Trump thing? Is it just something that Trump says? And Trump's like, even Xi Jinping said, is that a Trump thing? Yeah, because they all view you as a scammer. They all view you as a liar. Anyway, just so people are like, what's this press conference about? Here, just play that one clip.
So we're going to use that money to provide $12 billion in economic assistance to American farmers. $12 billion is a lot of money, Meryl. What do you think? Peanuts for you, though, right? Peanuts. She's a farmer of rice. This relief will provide much-needed certainty to farmers as they get this year's harvest to market and look ahead to next year's crops. And it'll help them continue their efforts to lower food prices for American families.
Another bailout brought to you by Donald Trump.
It's the same exact thing he did in the last term. Like, I don't know, like, how do people keep falling for the scam? Like, farmers, no offense, what are you doing? What are you doing? He ran your industry into the ground last time he was in office. He had to bail you out in the same exact way. He did it again. Is it really worth the suffering? Is it really worth the suffering? I just do not understand it. The thing I see is, as Ben said earlier, is that these Republicans, they try to manipulate people and control people and get people to vote against their own interests by putting forward all of these kind of social and cultural issues and get people to hate the other. And how could we tear down trans people, or how could we attack black people or women, or whatever the group is that they want to attack in order to distract people into voting against their interests. But how could you possibly call yourself the party of small government if that is what you're doing? If you are micromanaging these individual groups, if you are trying to stoke hate against these individual groups. And what I have seen is that the true people who actually want government off people's backs are the people who don't want to attack these groups, who want people to be able to live their lives happily with actual freedom, rather than whatever the hell it is that we are seeing from this Trump regime. And as Ben said, it's that 1984, everything is, flipped on its head, where they call that freedom when they are restricting the rights of so many Americans, and they stir up all this hate and resentment from people like farmers who then vote against their own interests. I don't think farmers personally, I don't think they want to bail out. I think they don't want their industry to be completely crippled and destroyed because of Donald Trump's ridiculous actions. But that's what we're seeing. That's what we saw before. That's what we're seeing again. I mean, we're seeing now more layoffs right now than since the pandemic of 2020. By the way, also under Donald Trump's watch. I'm not saying the entire pandemic was Donald Trump's fault, but he certainly mishandled the hell out of that pandemic by calling it a hoax and refusing to do anything. And then if you remove the pandemic, we are now approaching the 2009 financial crisis levels of layoffs in this country right now under Donald Trump's presidency. And by the way, we are well on our way to surpassing those levels. So think about how, for those who are around around at the time. Think about how bad things were then, and then think about that data that we are getting right now. And it's data that we are not receiving from the federal government as we should be receiving. This is data that's coming in from these private firms because, as Ben was talking about the long list of cover-ups, the United States government is also covering up just how bad things are for the economy, because if people see what's really happening out there, they would see just how devastating the Trump administration has been to all of these industries. I think it's virtually every industry, save for like 2 industries, are all laying off workers. This has been the worst economy for the United States. And, I think the Biden administration learned this the hard way as well. You can't tell people that things are amazing if they're not feeling that things are amazing. And Biden, by the way, had a much better case to make than Trump had, right? Biden was digging the United States out of a hole that was largely caused by Donald Trump, that was caused by instability abroad with Russia and Ukraine. There were a lot of external factors that led to the issues that we saw under the economy of the Biden administration. And Biden was steadying the ship, slowly but surely he was steadying the ship. By the time Biden left office, we had seen inflation coming down. Donald Trump came in, inflation started going back up. Once he started implementing these tariffs, things started getting way worse again. We started seeing manufacturing absolutely fall off a cliff after expanding under Biden, all of those things. But former President Biden, he too tried to highlight the good in the economy. And the thing is, when people are feeling the pressures of inflations and these kitchen table issues, they don't frankly care about what the GDP number is or the economy as a whole. Right now, Donald Trump is trying to sell people an economy that doesn't even look good on paper, quite frankly. The only thing that is good out there, I guess, has been like the stock market. And it's really just rubbing things in people's faces when you say everything is great. We're in the golden age. This is the best time ever. And people open up their wallets and they don't have cash. They try to pay their bills. They don't have money in their bank account. They're overdrafting. They're getting laid off from their jobs. It's honestly, it's more offensive, quite frankly, for the administration to say that everything is great than for them to level with the American people and say, listen, times are tough out there. We get it. Here are the steps that we are doing right now to try to help you. But the thing is, all the steps that they're taking are things that are only going to dig this country further into a hole. And then what are they going to do? At some point, this mess will be passed along to another administration, and then they'll blame the other administration for all their problems, and then they'll try to dupe the American people into thinking that it's all the other administration's fault, and then the endless cycle continues. But hopefully we could break out of that cycle. We got the truth on our side. We're going to continue to spread it here on the MeidasTouch Podcast.
One of the things that was announced today by the Trump Labor Department also was that they were not going to provide the data of the PPI inflation, the producer price index. And they also previously announced that they were not going to be doing the October consumer price index report. So they're just, remember how this episode we're talking about, they're covering up the Epstein files. They're covering up the war crimes videos or the crimes against humanity. They're covering up Donald Trump's medical records. They are not producing the labor reports about the inflation numbers. Everything is a scam. This is what con artists and scammers and frauds do. This is what Trump's done his entire life. This is why he's bankrupted things his entire life. And now they've taken control of the United States and they are weakening it in ways that are not even fully appreciated. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about those things that, again, are not getting enough attention. Donald Trump's fake peace deals, I want to talk about. And then I want to talk about how Trump has degraded the Department of Justice and made it basically into the most, I don't know how you'd even describe it. A law firm that would be laughed out of court is now with the DOJ, which is the once proud organization of law and order, has now been reduced to some disbarred law firm, essentially. Okay, we'll take our last quick break of the show. A reminder, help us get to 6 million subscribers. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed to our channel. So double check, subscribe. We're close to hitting 6 million subscribers before the end of the year. We've got a jolt of subscribers. So make sure you're subscribed. All right, we'll be right back after this quick break.
True self-reliance starts with taking control of your own health. Armra colostrum is nature's original solution. Colostrum is packed with over 400 bioactive nutrients that fortify gut health and strengthen immune health to build resilience at the cellular level. Because when you invest in your health, you invest in your ability to show up, think clearly, and stay in control no matter what life throws your way. Today's environment is filled with toxins, processed foods, modern stressors, and immune disruptors. Nourish your microbiome and strengthen your barriers to support your immune health. Armra colostrum is your secret to feeling strong, vibrant, and confident again. Not seeing results with your current routine? Colostrum is packed with 400 plus bioactive nutrients that work like a blueprint for your body, promoting your cells' natural renewal processes to support skin, hair, gut health, metabolism, immune health, lean muscle, and whole body vitality. Strengthen your gut integrity and support healthy fat metabolism to empower your body with the blueprint to revitalize health from the inside out. We've worked out a special offer for my audience. Receive 30% off your first subscription order. Go to armra.com/Meidas or enter Meidas to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's armra.com/Meidas. Ever have one of those moments where your body reminds you it's not 25 anymore? Maybe it's the slower recovery after a workout or the way your joints creak like an old floorboard. And don't get me started on how much worse it is in the winter. It's like my energy goes into hibernation. Aging is a reality for all of us, but our actions determine how we age. That's why I use Qualia Senolytic to help keep my cells healthy and my body feeling youthful. Zombie cells are real and they're aging you. These senescent cells stop being useful, but stick around, draining your energy, slowing recovery, and making you feel older than you are. Qualia Senolytic helps your body fight back against aging. It's a powerful, clinically tested formula with 9 vegan, plant-derived compounds that support your body's natural ability to eliminate zombie cells, so you can feel sharper, stronger, and more energized. Take it just 2 days a month. That's all it takes. Take Qualia Senolytic for just 2 days a month and start aging better at the cellular level. After adding Qualia Senolytic to my routine, I noticed a real difference. My energy feels steadier, recovery is quicker, and mentally I'm more dialed in. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/Meidas for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Meidas for an additional 15%. That's qualialife.com/Meidas for up to 50% off your purchase. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode.
You know, every holiday season, I try to be relaxed, but then on top of all the crazy news we're dealing with, you've got the travel, the endless planning, the last minute chaos. And before I know it, I'm clenching my jaw so hard at night that I wake up feeling like I just chewed through concrete. So I finally did something about it. That's why I use Remy night guards, and I'm not alone. Approximately 30% of U.S. adults grind or clench their teeth at night. Remy's custom night guards are clinically tested to prevent teeth grinding, reduce jaw tension and facial muscle strain, and improve sleep quality. You get the same professional quality and comfort as a night guard from the dentist, but Remy costs you 80% less and is way more convenient than having to go into the dentist's office. And as an added cost benefit, you can use your HSA or FSA benefits toward your night guard at checkout. Here's how it worked for me. I received my impression kit straight to my door, followed Remy's step-by-step instructions to get the perfect impression. They crafted and shipped me my custom fit night guard, and once it arrived, I started protecting my teeth immediately. Super easy, super quick. And for the holiday season, Remy is gifting their customers with their 2-in-1 foam that both cleans your night guard and whitens your teeth for free when you order a night guard between now and December 24th. Go to shopremy.com/Meidas and use code Meidas to receive 55% off your new night guard plus a free foam gift. That's shop, REMI.com/Meidas, MEIDAS, for 55% off a night guard plus free gift using code Meidas. Thank you, Remy, for sponsoring this episode.
Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in the description of the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there is an exit survey, let them know we sent you. Benji, where to next?
War is peace. Ignorance is strength. Let's take the latter. Ignorance, but a toxic malpractice. I wouldn't even go and say some ignorance, but just outright hostility towards law and order from this Trump DOJ, which continues to have these fake United States attorneys in various districts across the country, these people who pretend to be United States attorneys, to lead these prosecutorial offices after not being confirmed by the Senate or having their term extended by the district court judges in that district, who are made up of Trump judges, Obama judges, Biden judges, Clinton judges, Reagan judges. The group of bipartisan judges say these people are unqualified to continue as an interim basis. They're fired. And they continue to show up for work until basically the equivalent of a restraining order has to be made from the Court of Appeals to remove them from their position. So an example is Alina Habba. Alina Habba has pretended to be the United States attorney from the District of New Jersey. Her term was not extended on an interim basis. She was not Senate confirmed, but she would show up to work every day, put her name on the filings, call herself a United States attorney, not even interim. She'd call herself a United States attorney. And finally, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals said, get her out of here. She can't be here. Stop having her sign her name to things. Remove her. And she tried to do everything. Like after she was fired, then the position below her, the like assistant United States attorney, the deputy assistant becomes the interim. So like Alina Habba would then fire that person and be like, okay, I took the job. I guess I'm the United States attorney again. Be like, no, you can't do that. You're gone. They don't want you here. You're fired. Like leave. And she would, like a sociopath, like show up to work. But it's not just her. You've got many districts across the country. This is taking place. You've got this happening in the Northern District of New York. You've got this taking place in Nevada. At least the guy in the Central District of California isn't referring him to himself as the United States attorney. It's like first assistant is how he's referring to himself as. And then you, of course, have Lindsay Halligan in the Eastern District of Virginia, who can't have been appointed interim. She's already ruled to be disqualified by the federal courts because there was already one interim who Trump fired, a Republican who Trump hired and fired. Trump hired the guy and then fired the guy because the guy his name is Siebert, would not go on and prosecute Trump's political enemies because there was no evidence to do it. So Trump fired Siebert, brought in Halligan, and you're not allowed to do that. You only get one interim. Now, if Halligan was Senate confirmed, you can do that, but who would confirm someone who's never been a prosecutor before? The way Habba's never been a prosecutor before. The way the guy in New York has never been a prosecutor before. But now, from the official Department of Justice account, this is what they're saying. A statement from Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche from Main Justice in D.C. Certain district court and magistrate judges in the Eastern District of Virginia are engaging in an unconscionable campaign of bias and hostility against United States Attorney Lindsay Halligan and her line of AUSAs. That stands for Assistant United States Attorneys. Lindsay and our attorneys are simply doing their jobs, advocating for the Department of Justice's position while following the guidance from the Office of Legal Counsel. We will continue fighting for public safety. What that's in response to is all of these judges who were appointed by different political parties over the years keep telling the prosecutors in Virginia, stop including her name on the documents. She's not the United States attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, and you're going to be harming these cases because the criminal defendants in these other cases, not even the high-profile ones where Trump's targeting his enemies, in these other cases, she's going to taint the whole case because she's not the U.S. attorney. So take her name off, get her out of the office, and DOJ in Washington, D.C. is refusing to do that. They're forcing the AUSAs, the assistants, the main prosecutor, the line prosecutors, the day-to-day, they're forcing them to have her keep her name on the filings, despite the fact that she's not allowed to be on there. And she keeps signing her name as United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, despite not being allowed to hold the position because it's against the law. Folks, this is like sociopathic stuff, and it is absolutely harming the prosecutions of traffickers, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, espionage cases, terrorist cases, money laundering cases, fraud cases, the types of cases that prosecutors deal with every day. These fake prosecutors who've never been prosecutors before in their life at any stage. They haven't even interned for a federal prosecutor's office before. They're screwing all of this up. It's a major issue. And it's at the same time where Donald Trump is pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the top drug trafficker former president of Honduras, who said, get the drugs up the nose of the gringos, 500 tons of cocaine into the United States, working with the Sinaloa cartel. Trump pardoned a guy named David Gentile, who committed $1.6 billion Ponzi scheme fraud from a fake private equity entity, and basically preyed on retail investors and stole people's life savings. You have Donald Trump pardoning the people over at Binance who pled guilty to human trafficking and helping like Al-Qaeda launder money and horrible things like that. These are the people who Donald Trump is pardoning every single day. And then he goes on to, and Brett, I'll pass it to you, but then he goes on to attack the two things. One, the governor of Minnesota, Governor Walz, because fraud occurred in Minnesota under a food program under Governor Walz's watch, and those people are being prosecuted for engaging to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. But everyone's like, Governor Walz probably needs to resign now, or he shouldn't run for a third term. Why? Because there was fraud that took place in a state, and the bad guys are being prosecuted for their crimes, while Donald Trump's pardoning people who've engaged in conduct way worse. And then Donald Trump's like, you see, it's just the Somalians, all of them. They're garbage people, Trump says. Every Somalian's garbage. And he just generically and racistly and xenophobically refers to an entire group of people as being garbage humans, and because there was a small group of people who were involved in fraud, while Trump's pardoning people engaged in much worse fraud than that. So that's what's happening there. Let me pass it to you, Brett, because that's the first aspect of it, this degradation of the DOJ. Oh, I'll also mention these two facts too. So like you'll have the Washington, D.C. federal judge, Judge Boasberg, require like Kristi Noem and Emil Bove, people who worked at the DOJ, and Kristi Noem, obviously the head of the Department of Homeland Security, submit declarations about their role and involvement in sending the migrants to the concentration camp, CCOT. They call it a terrorist detention center. Call it what you want. I believe it's a concentration camp in El Salvador. After several months back, Judge Boasberg issued an injunction blocking it. Remember, they still sent the people to El Salvador, even though there was an order. And so now you have Kristi Noem submitting declarations saying, attorney-client privilege, I can't tell you. I have a privilege with the Justice Department. Executive privilege, I can't give you any information. Emil Bove, who's now a Third Circuit Court of Appeal judge, but he was a top DOJ official who basically said, F what the judges say. F their order. You're going to do what you're told. F the judges. He's now, the guy who said F the judges is now a Third Circuit Court of Appeal judge. Well, he submitted a declaration saying, attorney-client privilege, I can't give you any information. Also, in the civil lawsuit against Donald Trump for his conduct relating to January 6th, that's proceeding before the Washington, D.C. federal court, Trump has asserted executive privilege not to turn over any records regarding Trump's conspiracies, the lies about the FBI's involvement. They want to hide that. Meanwhile, special counsel Jack Smith wants to testify publicly under oath before Congress and the Senate, but the MAGAs don't want him to testify publicly because they believe his testimony will be damaging to Donald Trump. So they want to do a private deposition where they can then basically manipulate what it is he said and come out. And he's like, can I do this in public? They're like, no. So I just want you to think about all of that taking place, because we can get into the facts of these things. But on the one hand, the Trump regime goes on state regime media to spew their propaganda, and then they hide everything. And then when they're actually asked to go under oath, I can't do it. I can't do it. They'll make their propaganda videos, steal Sabrina Carpenter's music. They'll do all of that. Okay, well, now you want to talk about it in front of a court? No. I'm not going to go to court. Executive privilege, attorney-client privilege. I'm not going to do that. Then they trash Jack Smith, and they're like, you want to go in front of the public? Yeah, I do. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. We got to keep this secret. That tells you everything you need to know about this vile regime. Brett, Jordy.
And this is what happens when you put criminals inside the White House. So when you put criminals inside all the various facets of the United States government, they're going to do criminal stuff. I mean, that's what's happening. That's what we're seeing. They try to claim everyone else is criminals, everyone else is corrupt. As always, the call is coming from inside the House with this administration. It's never been a better time to be a wealthy criminal in this country. You could do whatever you want. You could steal from people, rip people off, engage in the biggest fraud campaigns imaginable. As long as you are somewhat nice to Donald Trump, he will bail you out because he's always hoping for stuff in return. I mean, we saw over the weekend Donald Trump do one of his most brazen admissions yet regarding all these pardons that he's done. We've, of course, speculated here. I would say there are very educated guesses as to all of Donald Trump's pardons. He's pardoned more than 1,500 people, far more than any other president in history, and more and more and more by the day. But Donald Trump pardoned the Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar, who was indicted by the Biden Justice Department, indicted on charges of corruption. And Donald Trump has an affinity for people who are indicted on corruption charges. The party does not matter for him, but we saw Donald Trump's ulterior motives when he bailed out Henry Cuellar. Donald Trump took to social media over the weekend, and what did he say? He was raging against Henry Cuellar because after he got the pardon, Cuellar announced that he was going to run for re-election again. Not only was he going to run for re-election, but he was going to run for re-election as a Democrat. He was not going to switch parties and give the Republicans another seat in the House. So Donald Trump was fuming. But in Donald Trump's rage at Representative Cuellar, it revealed kind of the whole game behind Donald Trump's administration and his pardons and the mafia-style way in which he runs the United States government. And that's he always wants something for his actions. He's trying to extort people for certain things. In this case, it was, I'll give you this pardon if you give me a House seat. And Henry Cuellar got the pardon and then said, F you, I'm not giving you that House seat. And now Donald Trump looked like an idiot and he's all upset, but no take backsies. You know, it is what it is, but it just shows you the corruption like that alone, which kind of everyone I feel like has forgotten about, even though it was like 24 hours ago. That alone would be an impeachable offense in any other administration. I mean, that corruption is so brazen. We went from like 2019 when Donald Trump did quid pro quos over the phone with Zelensky to try to pressure Zelensky and the Ukrainian government to investigate Joe Biden and dig up all this fake dirt on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden to try to influence the election. Back then, how quaint does it sound now to say, oh, a whistleblower came forward. And then in this case, it was Vindman, right? A whistleblower came forward and he revealed that Donald Trump was engaging in a quid pro quo scheme to extort the Ukrainians. Now Donald Trump just comes out and he's like, yeah, I tried to bribe him. Didn't work. What the hell, man? I thought we had a deal.
Right, that's why when Congressman Vindman was like, I've got big news to report, like it was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's like, if you thought it was bad what he said to Zelensky, wait till we get our hands on what he goes, I heard what he said to MBS in Saudi Arabia. And I was thinking to myself, like, I appreciate you as a congressman. I appreciate the work that you've done before there in the intelligence community. And I appreciate your heroism and courage. I said, but I don't need these audios anymore or these secret calls, a lot of them, because I know it's happening in plain view.
He says it every day. He tweets it out every day.
He says it. I mean, Russia. Donald Trump put out a 28-point surrender plan that we know was laundered through Russia. Donald Trump put out a national security strategy that literally mimics Russia's view about Europe. I mean, Russia. Donald Trump, this is a direct quote from the United States National Security Strategy. It is official United States policy for Europe as follows: cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations. Let me repeat that. Cultivating resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations. Translation, I don't think it's needed, but I'll translate it for you. And the European Union. Break up the European Union. The other point that it talks about there is end NATO and end the perception of NATO as a permanent standing organization. Brett, pull it up just so I want to read the exact language because it's even worse than talking about the existence, even the perception that NATO exists and is expanding. Trump wants to end the perception, end the reality of NATO as a perpetually expanding alliance. And then it also talks about supporting these right-wing groups, which Trump refers to as the patriot groups, which are really the groups that sympathize with Putin and want to dismantle the European Union. Can we just play the clip of Ben Hodges, former United States Army general who oversaw the Europe Command? We've had him on here a lot, but here's what Hodges said recently as well when he was doing an interview with another network, Channel 4. Here, play this clip.
This is the giant middle finger to that Europe by this administration. I think the happiest person in the world with this document is Vladimir Putin, because this strategy cedes Europe to the Russian sphere of influence. And this is out in the open now. It's not, there's no nuance. It's out in the open. And I think that Europe better, number one, ensure that Ukraine does not fail. And number two, it better be ready, because if Ukraine does fail, there will be a full war between Russia and Europe very soon.
A full-on war between Russia and Europe very soon. So not only has Donald Trump not brought peace to Ukraine in 24 hours as he's promised, he's basically brought war to Europe in 24 hours. And let's just take a look at what's been happening as well. You had drones likely of Russian origin hovering over nuclear submarines in France. When Zelensky spoke in Ireland, you had drones likely of Russian origin that potentially would have engaged in an assassination of Zelensky, but Zelensky arrived a little bit early. But this stuff is happening in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and Russia recognizes that it has carte blanche authority, but the U.S. looking away to do all of these things. The U.S. removed sanctions against Luke Oil, a Russian oil company. So not only is Trump not putting secondary sanctions on Russia, Trump is removing the sanctions against Russia. And Trump is also going after European nations who want to use seized Russian assets and transferring them to Ukraine. Trump is attacking those countries who do that. So that's,
and they're trying to put sanctions on the EU.
Yeah, they want to, exactly. They want to send, and they're attacking the European Union for enforcing its own digital act to do that. Basically, find Musk. This is what. So Trump and Musk and Putin and Dmitriev and all the kind of Trump-Russian connection. They're attacking the European Union for fining Elon Musk like $140 million for engaging in consumer protection violations. The types of consumer protection laws we used to care about in the United States, like false verifications, not being transparent about where advertising money is going, and other types of things that deal with like ripping off consumers and deceiving consumers. And the Europe imposes these requirements on any big social media platform that has 45 million subscribers or more. Meanwhile, in Russia, they've completely banned X, which is formerly, it doesn't exist. You're not allowed to use it. And if those companies try to encroach, they like find Google before like the entire GDP of Russia. So you actually have in Russia a censorship regime that doesn't even allow these things to exist. In Europe, they have consumer protections, the type that we used to care about in the United States. And then Trump and Musk say, dismantle the EU, get rid of him. It's anything to latch on to attack the European.
Yeah, and who does Musk and Trump and all these MAGA Republicans, who do they say is the threat to free speech, are the people who are against free speech? They say the EU, not Russia, who actually bans all the various platforms, but the EU, who is trying to enforce basic laws of verification, of fraudulent advertising practices, of very basic things that anybody should be going after. They view that as anti-free speech, and not the Russian regime that is literally clamping down on any sort of forms of communication that the public could possibly use, and also aligning themselves with the officials in the Russian government who are touting those same points. You ever notice they always line up just perfectly? Those Russian officials, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, all these Republicans, always very in sync with one another.
Is it Kirill Dmitriev, Yuri Yushakov, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Jared Kushner? I mean, it's the exact same talking points. All right, let's just go to this last topic that I want to talk about. It's related to this: war is peace, peace is war. Donald Trump wanting to give himself, a peace prize. Do we have the clip of the FIFA guy giving Donald Trump the fake peace prize? I know you've seen it before, but it's so deeply embarrassing. But I want to frame this segment around this first clip. Let's play that first clip if we got it.
This is your peace prize. there is also a beautiful medal for you that you can wear everywhere you want to go.
Right now.
Okay, let me hold. Fantastic. Excellent.
Truly one of the most humiliating things in American history. I would say, what did we deserve to have to go through this humiliation ritual as a nation? But then I would answer it. We elected Donald Trump, and I guess the country as a whole deserves this humiliation ritual, because what the hell is that? But okay, so you all know last week Donald Trump brought in the leaders of Congo and Rwanda and said that there was a peace deal in Rwanda and Congo, right? And these leaders, they were like, look how happy they are. And they didn't look happy at all. So like, why don't we do just a modicum of research, right? Like, why don't we just turn on the TV from some of the TV stations in Africa and see what's going on actually in Congo and Rwanda? This right here is from a Kenyan TV station that actually reports on this. Let's take a look. Let's turn on what's really happening in the Congo as of yesterday. Here, play this clip.
All right, and now we set the stage for our conversation on the DRC after the deal. Fierce fighting continued in the eastern DRC hours after the signing of a peace accord between DRC's President Felix Tshisekedi and his Rwandan counterpart Paul Kagame. Hundreds of people fled the towns of Luvungi and Katogota in South Kivu following fresh attacks on Friday. The latest attacks put into question the commitments of the Washington Accord, a peace deal signed in the United States that is meant to stop the ongoing war between the Congolese armed forces and the Rwanda-backed M23 and stabilize the region plagued by armed conflict and militia activity. Safina Chinguma has that development.
Hosted by U.S. President Donald Trump, Presidents Felix Tshisekedi of Congo and Paul Kagame of Rwanda signed a peace agreement on Thursday that rekindled the hope of peace in the war-torn eastern Congo region. And even before the ink on this landmark diplomatic agreement dried, fighting has flared up again in the east of the DRC, with the Rwandan-backed M23 rebel group and the Congolese army blaming each other for the spate of attacks in villages across North and South Kivu that saw many flee their homes.
How about Thailand? What's going on between Thailand and Cambodia?
But Thailand says it has deployed air assets along its disputed border with Cambodia after reporting multiple clashes along the border. Our correspondent Saksith Sambat is joining us live from Bangkok with more. Saksith, give us an update on the latest situation along that Thai-Cambodian border.
Yes, what we are seeing here seems to be a very risky escalation at the disputed Thai-Cambodian border. This morning, the Royal Thai Army issued a statement saying that there have been repeated multiple clashes along the border at 2 points and at 2 different instances in the past morning, in the past night. This is also follows another incident that happened on Sunday afternoon, where Thai soldiers have been injured in the clashes in the latest clashes. One time.
Let's bring in Brett and Jordy. So I can also show you what's happening in Gaza.
Peace everywhere.
Innocent Palestinians continue to be killed. I can show you, look, there's actually never been a more dangerous time internationally than leading up to World War I right now. And I don't want to be overly hyperbolic and say we're on the eve of World War III or World War III is already taking place and we haven't fully labeled what's happening as such. But there is a massive change and global realignments taking place right now. You have Modi going over and meeting with Putin after Trump has destroyed America's alliance with India. You have BRICS, be it Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, asserting itself more and looking as a more reliable partner internationally than the United States, which attacks all of its allies or former allies at this point. There were other parts in that national security document that basically although perhaps these exact words weren't used, but basically treat Canada as a vassal state within the United States geographic sphere of influence. Like, that's the terminology that it used, that the Western Hemisphere is the U.S. sphere of influence and it will dominate it, which is like, that's how you're talking about Canada. It is. I'm reminded of what Bernie Sanders said to me, Senator Sanders, that the most important issues are often the ones that are getting least discussed. One of them is AI taking over and displacing people's job in these data centers, crushing people. We talk about it here. Obviously, we talk about the economy here, what's happening with healthcare here. One issue that's not getting discussed is this global realignment. And what Trump is doing to the United States internationally is weakening the United States to levels that we've never seen. China's power is being enhanced. Russia, which is actually suffering economically, is enjoying the perception of the United States backing, while Russia is strengthening its relationships with China and North Korea and Iran, while the US is attacking Europe and Canada and Australia. And so Europe is trying to figure out, where it's obviously recognized that the same way Canada has and Australia has, that the relationship with the U.S. is over, but kind of treating the U.S. and China in the same bucket of like people. And then you have this kind of Commonwealth alliance. Then you have this BRICS alliance, and then you have the U.S. kind of there with Donald Trump giving himself fake peace prizes with FIFA, with the soccer tournament. Like that's what's happening internationally.
It's why it's so important that you always have adults in the room, that you need adults in the room, because for me, it's genuinely my biggest fear is how we fix this, post the Trump presidency. If you could see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you could see things actually improving down the line, how do we get through this as far as our reputation is concerned as a nation? Because the damage that Donald Trump has done to us already, for me, it's a stench that I don't care how many showers you take, it's going to take a lot more than you think to get off of you, Ben.
Well, this country's going to need one whole, a lot of showers, a big shower for sure after all of this. But, I think back to the past, and there is certainly a perception, I think, amongst a lot of people throughout our history that believed that, our country was moving in a specific direction, and it didn't matter who you plugged in the presidency, because there are all these guardrails, there are all these rules that at the end of the day, things are going to kind of continue to proceed as they have been. And I think what this administration, I hope, has shown people, although I'm still not fully confident with a lot of people, some of the things people say, but that, yes, the person who is president of the United States matters, and it matters a whole lot. I mean, think back to, President Biden and the way that things were moving then. Think about the addition of countries to NATO. Think about the world, the free world being strengthened at this moment when Ukraine was attacked and getting the back of Ukraine. That was just one of many things that we saw. And now think about what we're seeing today under this Trump regime. Think about what happened to USAID and the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are going to die because of a singular man's actions, Donald Trump. There are such devastating effects from this one individual being put into a position of power of this government. And I think we all have to just remember this moment right now, as painful as it is, to remember it going forward, that these votes, that these elections do have tremendous consequences of life and death, consequences of the global world order, things that affect the United States being a very democracy as we know it. America right now, the United States, we're basically a pariah state right now in the world. We have all of these other countries in the EU and in Asia. We have all these other people right now trying to figure out, how do we proceed without the United States in this new world order? How do we continue to, in Europe, how do we continue to defend our values and protect freedom while the United States is aligning itself with autocracies, that is aligning itself with Russia and all of these other countries? And so we're in a very precarious situation right now. But I think it's important that we all reflect on this moment right now, continue to work to get out of this moment, and then never lose sight of how bad things are and were, hopefully in the future, were under the Trump regime and all the things that we need to do to ensure that the guardrails are there for the future, to ensure that we get out of this and we create a world that is actually stronger in defending democracy, in defending our allies. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take a whole lot of work, but we have to constantly be remembering the destruction that this administration has caused throughout this entire regime that Trump has, been in the Oval Office.
Well said. Quickly mention Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett announced her run for the Senate. Colin Allred, former Democratic congressman running for Senate, then announced that he would be running for the 33rd Congressional District. That's the Dallas County Congressional District. And one of the things that she said is, look, I'm not even going to try to get the Republican votes here. They're a lost cause, basically, or we shouldn't be trying to keep the electorate as she goes. If someone's going to win in Texas, you've got to expand the electorate and you've got to bring in voters who don't vote. She says, when we ended up with Trump phenomenon, or even when we ended up with Obama, they were able to both bring out people that historically did not vote. I think that's the only way that we win in Texas, if we have a candidate that can add to the electorate. If the electorate remains the same electorate that we've had over the last 30 years, then I think we're going to end up with the same result, she said. So that's her thesis for the election, which is a let the choir sing louder and add people to the choir. And you don't necessarily even need to focus on the other choir, because why even try to deal with someone who thought that if Trump was so easily able to manipulate them, why even deal with them, basically is kind of what I read her saying.
Yeah, no, so think about that primary. We got Jasmine Crockett in that primary now. We have State Representative James Tallarico in that primary now. Allred, as Ben said, has dropped out, and he's now going to be running for that congressional seat. And I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts on it. There are a lot of people who thought that Jasmine Crockett shouldn't run, thinking that she's somebody who would be very strong in a primary, but weaker in a general election. You have a lot of people who think that she's going to bring renewed excitement to the race, and that excitement could bring new voters to the table, which is basically Crockett's thesis. My view of this race, and of really all these races, is let the primaries happen. Let the strongest candidates come out. Let the conversations be had. I think people entering the race, I think the more attention that there are on these races, I think it only bodes well. And I think we need to be at a place right now where we're able to see these politicians across all parties having discussions about what their ideas are for the future and have the best ideas win out, And so I think, why freak out over something that you can't control, right? Don't freak out. You should view this as this is a positive thing, right? We have people now that are going to inject excitement into a highly coveted race here in Texas, a race that constantly Democrats have tried to win, but have come up short for decades and decades and decades. And now we get to see these two incredible candidates go forth in a battle of ideas, as we should constantly be engaged in this country going forward, in order to try to make the case as to why they could best win the general election. I know we're going to be following it very closely here, and we'll be reporting on it every step of the way, in addition to all the other races happening across the country. 2026, of course, is going to be a very big and important year for the United States, for politics and for our democracy. Will we have a check on this Trump regime? And will these Republicans be ejected from the House of Representatives and not just be there to rubber stamp all of Donald Trump's worst instincts? You are seeing the panic right now, not only developing, but exploding right now within the Republican Party in the House, has been touched on earlier in the episode. These people are freaking miserable. And so I think if there's some solace you could take during this Trump administration, it's at least knowing that MAGA Mike hates his life. Knowing that everyone around MAGA Mike, all these people, they hate their lives so much. They are so miserable. Unfortunately, they are taking their misery out on the American people, which not great in my opinion. I think you would agree. But hopefully, Americans kick them to the curb come 2026, and we start seeing a check on this administration. We start seeing some action, some investigations, and we start the process of healing this country, as Jordy was getting at.
There we go, everybody. First off, I want to thank everybody for watching this episode. And I also want to give a shout out to the Riverside County Democrats for showing me an incredible time this weekend. I was honored to receive their award for Independent Journalist of the Year at their gala event that they hold. I was able to go there with my wife and bring our little baby, our 15-month-old girl. We had a great time at the event. I got to meet so many incredible leaders in the Riverside County Democratic Party, community organizers, union leaders, and just great people who were there. And it warmed my heart to hear how impactful the MeidasTouch podcast and this network is to your lives. For me, because we're working 18, 19-hour days, putting out all of this content every day, I don't get out a lot. And so when I do get out, it really touches me so much to hear from you that this has really made a difference in your life. And I want you to know that you've made a big difference in my life. Even if I can't meet each and every one of you, when I'm around and I do go outside, invariably, I'll hear from people who watch the show and they'll echo those sentiments of how important this has been in their lives. And so I just want you to know that the feeling is mutual and you're our heroes. And we've created this network to try to amplify your voice and what matters to you, which is freedom, democracy, empathy, love, and really making America what we know it has potential to be and what it once was, and to improve things and to make it better. So thank you. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.